Today at some point we begin the Great Fast. It's normally after Vespers this evening that we begin. And we begin with a ceremony called Forgiveness Vespers, which means that each of us turns to the other and we ask the other person to forgive us our sins. Now, because we won't be here this evening, we won't actually be doing that. But then, as you come to know or greet everybody for the first time during Lent, and especially this coming week, you should say to them, "Forgive me." And if you don't say it out loud, you should say it quietly, "Forgive me." Because you'll probably find that if you were to give them a sheet of paper and say, "I'd like you to write down all the sins that I have committed over the last year," they would say, "What? Only one sheet of paper?" I know how it is in my own case, obviously. Poor long-suffering Daniel gets to live with me, and he probably has a fairly good idea of the sort of person that I am, and probably thinks that the most sinful person in this church is the parish priest. So forgive me. And before we come before anybody else, we need to start off by saying to ourselves, "I need their forgiveness." And immediately, they of course also need yours. And very often what you'll find yourself doing is that you'll be forgiving them the sin that you find most enjoyable yourself. You'll be saying, "Yes, I forgive you for all that gossip and everything else." Of course I don't gossip. And I was thinking, "God, can you believe it, him saying that?" And so on. So start off this Lent in a good way by turning to everybody either out loud or silently and ask them to forgive you. And make sure you forgive them also. Because, as our Lord said, unless you forgive your brothers and sisters, He cannot forgive you. It's not possible for God to administer that particular medicine to you if you're not willing to take it. That's the first thing. The other thing you will have noticed, that if you've been doing some of the readings over this coming last week, and certainly for the last few weeks, you'll see just how frequently we are told to fast. The Bible is full of fasting. It's a very interesting thing. When the Lord talks about prayer, He says, when you pray, fast. This sort of demon can be taken out through fasting. He says, when you fast, make sure you look fine. Don't bedraggle yourself and refuse to cut your hair and wear dreadful clothing. Carry on as normal. He says, anoint yourself. Wash your face. It does not mean to say, of course, that you don't make yourself look especially wonderful to show everybody that you're fasting really. But you carry on as normal. And the same goes for every other type of fasting you do. So that your fasting should affect you and nobody else. So if you live in a family where nobody is fasting, they should not know that you are. They should not have the slightest idea that you have changed anything about your normal life. Because if they have, then you're forcing your fasting on them. And God will do nothing about your fasting because you'll have your reward already. So how should you fast? You do it secretly and silently. You do it in such a way that you don't look at what anybody else is doing. So if you happen to go to somebody else's house, and there they are eating roast beef and Yorkshire puddings and all sorts of other things, you take no notice. And you eat the roast beef and the Yorkshire puddings alongside them, and you give thanks to God for it, and you bless them for it, and you say nothing about it at all. And when you go home, you go into your icon corner and you thank God with all of your heart that you've had such a treat. That's what you do. So you don't say, "Oh, well, I'd better fast even worse now because that wicked person gave me all this lovely food to eat." Quite the reverse. That's one thing you do. The second thing you do is you fast sensibly, keeping an eye on what it is that you're really doing. I have to tell you, the very first time that I fasted, which was about 22 years ago, I was given this marvellous Greek book of recipes. Fantastic fasting recipes in them, and I fasted most carefully. And at the end of Lent, I had put on half a stone. It's quite delicious. That is not about fasting either. There are other things you could, if you go into Tesco's or somewhere like that, you'll find there are all sorts of oils and other things that have absolutely not the tiniest little bit of animal product in them. And they're distinguished from all the other things by being twice as expensive. So you can go and buy, if you want to, kosher margarine. No animal products in it at all. And it costs twice as much as the cheapest margarine. Go for the cheap one. You can say to yourself, no, I'm not eating oil or wine or vinegar or any animal products except for oysters and lobsters and the most expensive prawns and so on. Delicious though they may be, and absolutely fasting, but that is not the spirit of the fast either. The spirit of the fast is this: you take control of your body. Your body needs to know from time to time who is in charge. Who's in charge of you? Who's in charge of your body? Is it God? Is it Satan? Are you even in charge of your body? And so it's terribly easy to go along finding in the freezer food compartments all sorts of things that taste exactly like cheese, exactly like milk, exactly like chicken, exactly like bacon, and so it goes on, and all of them perfectly fasting. It does actually take at least 10 years to learn a variety of good, nourishing, simple, fasting foods. So if you're just beginning on this journey, for heaven's sake, have milk and cheese this time. Because the important thing is not what you put into your mouth, although that is important. The important thing is that you are obedient. And you need to be obedient to God. And God has said to us that when you pray, and Lent is a great time for prayer, then you should fast. And when you fast and when you pray, then you also need to give away money and time and effort. And this is the way that we need to celebrate this great feast. You will find that as time goes on, there will be all sorts of things getting in your way. They may even have been things even now that have got in your way and are spoiling Great Lent for you straight away, without even having begun. And you might have had experiences and other things that say to you, I really cannot manage it this year. You can. You can manage it. You just need to make sure that you do. And press yourself into it. And say to yourself, actually, I am going to be in charge of this. I am going to do it. And then at the end, when you have had a completely vegan fast from now until Pascha, you come into church on Pascha Day, you will discover that you have gained no merit at all, except that you have been obedient. And not one single other soul must know that you have fasted, that you have prayed, that you have given alms. As far as they are concerned, you wasted the entire time, because it has to be done in secret. So when they go into the kitchen, they see you doing things. Perhaps they can see you picking up what looks to be a nice little bonbouche, nice tasty thing, and eat it, and they'll say, they're obviously not fasting. If you go into the kitchen and see somebody doing that, take no notice. It's none of your business.